Welcome friends in this survey module. In this particular module, I wish to discuss fundamentals of contouring in land survey. We'll get introduced with contour, uses of contour maps, contour interval and horizontal equivalent, factors affecting this particular contour interval, and certain common values that are commonly adopted as contour intervals. As one learns the content, I expect the student to define the contour interval, as well as horizontal equivalent. Also, state uses of contour maps and factors affecting contour interval and horizontal equivalent. Also, one will be able to state the common values of contour interval adopted in contour survey. According to our earlier learnings, we know that relief is a representation of the shapes of hills, valleys, streams, or terrain features on the earth's surface. And one can use these layer tinting, form lines, shaded relief, hashes, etc. in order to present the relief. As a civil engineer, we deal with shape of topographical features like hills, valleys, streams, and in general terrain features. But the thing is, as we wish to have the technical aspects related with that particular features, we are not simply interested in exhibiting, showing that particular relief, but we wish to work on it. And hence, the purpose does not serve fully. Hence, we wish to have these particular reliefs presented by making use of contour lines. So, what is contour? Contour can be defined as imaginary line on the ground surface which is joining points of equal elevation. According to our earlier knowledge, we know that level surface is surface which is parallel to mean spiral surface of the earth. Whereas horizontal surface is the surface which is tangential to this particular level surface. As we consider the intersection of this particular level surface and horizontal surface, it will be giving us some closed loop which is nothing but contour. So in reality, in order to obtain these particular imaginary lines, we cut the ground feature by series of level surface space at equal intervals. Practically, here any shoreline of still water body means here the water body which is not getting influenced because of wind as such. So there are no waves. So here this particular shoreline of still water body represents the contour. Now here if this particular level of the water is raised or reduced successively by known vertical ordinate, the successive shorelines represent the contour at that particular level. Say here for example the way you see. Here initially water level is assumed to be existing at 100 meters. Now say somehow we have reduced that particular height by 5 meters, so we'll be getting another shoreline. Further, as we reduce it by again 5 meters, we'll be getting this particular shoreline, and as such here we'll be reaching at the bottom. So here these particular successive lines are representing contour at these particular levels. The process of tracing the contour lines on or from the surface of the earth is called as contour. We'll be speaking more about this particular contouring operation and what do I mean by on and from the surface of the earth in subsequent presentation. Now, the contour line itself can be classified in three types. The first one is index contour. So, if we are dealing with the elevation of the mean sea level, it will be treated as 0, and with respect to that, every fifth contour line will be a thick line presenting the contour. These such heavier lines, thick lines, are known as index contour lines. Here this particular index contour line is expected to be provided with this particular value. So the way you see here, this particular thick line is index contour. Now, the contour lines falling between the index contour lines are intermediate contour lines. These lines are finer and do not have their elevations given. There are normally 4 intermediate contour lines between index contour lines. So say here, for example, if we consider this particular index line bearing value of 400, say here if next index value is 500, so in between 400 to 500 there will be 4 intermediate contour lines representing intermediate contour lines. In addition, we can induce some contour line in the form of these particular dashed lines which are placed in between intermediate contour lines. Especially when the ground is flat, the distance seen in the plan in between two successive contours will be too much. So, under such circumstances, half of the distance covered by that two subsequent contour lines is presented by this particular supplementary contour line. According to this particular definition, except index contour, none of the contour lines are provided with the value with reference to which it is produced. In civil engineering, a contour line is exhibiting a particular topographical feature. So, before starting any engineering project, maybe road, railway, canal, dam, harbour, anything like that, we have to carry out this particular contour survey. And the process related with carrying out this particular contour survey and obtaining the contour map is called as contouring. Here, as we complete this particular contouring process, we'll be able to plot these particular contour maps, which are very useful for the identification of appropriate sites for proposed engineering structure. Even based on the experience of that civil engineer, one can work out the economical aspect related with the probable alternatives that can be studied through the help of that particular map. So in general, the contouring operation is done by the surveyor and it is required before design of any engineering structure. Let's try to understand some inner aspects of this particular contouring and contours. See, this is the actual figure giving us details of that particular topographical feature. So on that left side here, what you can see is nothing but some mountain. On the right side there is certain mountain. Here there is some stream, valley-like structure. Here there is certain ridge-like structure. So when we plot the contours, it will be giving us some such picture. So the way you see here, the innermost value is highest as compared to the lowermost value or outermost value. It is obvious here, the way we consider contour is produced by having the intersection of the feature under consideration with certain horizontal plane or certain level surface. We are dealing with certain, say, if we are dealing with, say, plane surface, we can assume even the horizontal plane that is intersecting this particular feature under consideration. And as we cut this, we will be getting only that much loop. As we cut at this level, we will be getting only that much loop, and accordingly. So in the same way as we have the horizontal slices, we are getting this particular feature. By taking that particular fact into account, that is by taking the fact of intersection into account, we can have some features derived. Say for example, here the way you see, the contour is attaining typically kind of inverted V shape. So here this particular innermost V-shaped value is more as compared to outermost value. Hence, we can easily identify that this particular contour is showing certain streamline, drainage line, valley line, or if it is too deep, if the features are showing very sharp and closely placed line, we can think of even it as canal. Whereas here on the left side, the way you see, this is actually nothing but ridge. So here this is the kind of crest. On either side of it there is slope, and this crest is developed by series of hillocks placed next to each other. So accordingly here the way you see, these are some U-shaped contours which are representing that particular ridge-like feature. Here on the left side, the way you see, there is some steep slope. So for that particular steep slope, the contours are placed close to each other. Whereas on the other side, the way you see, as compared to this particular steepness, it is flat. Hence, the way you see, the contours are placed more or less parallel to each other, and the distance in between them is more. Hence, they are representing uniformly sloping ground. Here, there is one peak, this is another peak, in between there is saddle. In between there is saddle. So here, this innermost contour having highest value we can treat it as top. Same situation would also be here. Same situation would also be here. Hence, in between these two mounts, in between these two peaks, the feature seen here is nothing but saddle. So, here as we compare this particular situation, we can easily identify saddle, ridge, stream, steep slope, flat area, etc., etc., etc. as we develop some expertise in reading that particular contour maps. Here, these two terms are important while studying any contour map. The way we consider the index contours, which are shown by thicker lines and which have four further contour lines in the form of intermediate contours. So, here the way you see, this value is 11,000, this value is 10,800. Subsequently, again this particular contour is having value of 10,600. So these index contours are having contour interval of 200 meters. So with the common sense, the vertical ordinate in between two subsequent contours is nothing but contour interval. So here, whenever we are dealing with a one map, it has to have uniform contour interval. Whereas, as we consider two subsequent contours, say for example, this is our intermediate contour and this is our index contour. So here, in plan, the horizontal distance in between these two contours will be considered as horizontal equivalent. So here this particular contour interval will be constant criterion for the map, whereas this horizontal equivalent will depend on the placement of that particular contours and the place in which we wish to measure that particular horizontal equivalent. So it is treated to be variable and it will be depending on the slope of that particular ground. The way we consider the contours placed at some distance apart in the vertical plane, and we had considered some example of this lake or water body of which the surface is lowered through known distances. So in the same manner here, the way you see, if this particular water surface has value of 100 meters, now the next shoreline will be obtained if 1 meter drop is there. So here this 1 meter drop will be considered as contour interval. Whereas here what you see is nothing but horizontal equivalent. We have to consider some factors which will be affecting this particular contour interval. So the first factor is nature of terrain. If the ground is flat or if it is uniformly sloping, contour interval can be considered to be small. Whereas as we consider the ground is broken, if there are certain steep slope, the contour interval could be large. The second factor is purpose and extent of the survey. One just common consideration, these particular contours are imaginary lines. We have to obtain. That means in order to obtain, we have to spend the money, we have to use the resources, and then we will be having that particular contour map. So, if we wish to have very finer details, at that time the interval could be very small. So here if the work is that particular small, then here say purpose and extent of the survey will be deciding that particular contour interval. Also, we can think scale of the map. Now again, as we discussed previously, Steep slopes will be represented by the contour lines which are placed very close to each other. Whereas for flat and uniformly sloping ground, the contour lines will be placed some larger distance with respect to each other. Hence, the contour interval should be in the inverse ratio to the scale to avoid that overcrowding of that particular space. So here, if the scale is smaller, the contour interval will be greater. So, say just to bring more clarity, here if the scale is 1:500, the contour interval could be 0.2 to 0.5 meter. Whereas if this particular scale is 1:5000, it could be 2 to 5 meters. As the labor is involved, usage of resources are involved, here the contour interval can also be affected by time and expenses. So here if we do not have much of the time, if the funds are less, then we can go for higher contour intervals. So some common contour intervals are given just for your reference. Say for example, here if we consider that the greater and larger scales or smaller scales, the term could be confusing. That's why here you could consider the scales which are 1 centimeter equal to 10 meter or less can be treated as greater scales. Whereas here the scales 1:100 plus 1000 or so, it will be treated as smaller scales. So for large scale maps of flat country, say for example certain building sites or similar structures, the contour interval can be 0.2 to 0.5 meter. Whereas for reservoirs, for town planning schemes, the contour interval could be 0.5 to 2 meters. There are certain surveys in which there is an essential requirement to plot the features that already we have with reference to the survey lines or traversing networks that have been plotted on the site. Such surveys are called as location surveys, and under such category we can make use of 1 to 3 meter contour interval. For small scale maps or certain broken country, general topographical work, etc., we can go for 3, 5, 10, 25 meter, etc. Here, the set of the values that are given here are just for guideline. Now, I hope we have created enough background for the contour, its definition, contouring process, contour interval, horizontal equivalent, and how the features can be read. So lot many features could be included in the map. So say for example, here you have one map now. The way we considered about the V-shaped nature of the contour, and accordingly the outermost contour is having the lowest value and innermost contour having highest value. So accordingly here we can recognize valley-like feature. If another valley-like feature is seen in which the contours are very closely spaced with each other, which are indicating the further steep slope, and depths can be seen here, that means this is canal-like feature. Whereas here there are series of peaks which are placed and forming certain crest, either side of which is sloping downward, because here the contours are placed close to each other. That means there should be certain steep slope. Here there is certain uniform slope. Further horizontality or the flat terrain could be seen at that particular places. So here there is some reach. So the way I have considered this particular map, we can make use of such map for many purposes. First and foremost, to know the nature of the terrain, whether there is a flat, undulating or mountainous. To locate the physical features of the ground such as valley, ridge, canyon, hill, steep slope, small slope, etc. the way we discussed here. To select the suitable site for desired engineering project. Say for example, this is deep canyon. If we consider some structure which is creating some kind of storage here, this could be impoundment of water. So here this site will be appropriate for dam-like structure. Even we can draw the section, we can understand the intervisibility, we can locate the alignment of engineering structures, we can also decide the formation of the canal, road, railway so as to balance the quantity of earthwork. Here, these are particular cases. Here, just I wish to highlight the actual usage of this contour map. As we go into further depth, you will be able to clear your concept regarding such aspects. So, thank you friends, thanks for your attention. I hope the background related with contouring operation and its engineering aspects is clear through this particular discussion. So, as we move ahead, we'll be discussing about this particular characteristic of the contour as well as the methods that we adopt would be direct or indirect for contouring. So, till then, bye. I wish you very happy learning. Thank you very much.